welcome back to episode 29 of the Second Look Sports Podcast. I'm your host today, Justin Arenburg. Joined along with me is Brandon Brown. Now, obviously, we usually have a third member, the most talkative member of the group, obviously, JK. But Alex Mandarino, he's off to a wedding, not his own. Parents, if you're listening to this, not his own wedding. You are not missing your son's wedding. He's apparently in Ottawa going to a wedding tonight. So, yeah, we wish him all the best. Hope he's having fun. But yeah, we move on to the hottest team in baseball. Okay, like the hottest team, and I don't mean like, maybe they don't have the best record overall in like the last month, but in terms of just vibes, there is no better team than the Toronto Blue Jays right now. There just simply is not. Listen, this team is now tied as we sit here today on Thursday, July 3rd, for the AL East division title lead with the New York Yankees after they held sole possession of that lead since like April 11th, I think it is, or April 18th, somewhere in that range. But the Yankees, no one thought anyone was going to catch the Yankees through April, through May, and even parts of June, like early parts of June. It just didn't look like no one was going to catch the Yankees. But the Blue Jays have tracked them down in a massive 4-game series here at Toronto, or at the Rogers Center. And yeah, so far, we obviously don't know the outcome of Game 4 tonight, but the first 3 games have been electric. We went to the game on Monday night, me, you, and another couple classmates, and then Tuesday, Canada Day, George Springer goes off, and then last night they go up 8-0 in the first 2 innings, and then almost blow it just to have a wild 11-9 win. Man, the Blue Jays have been hot. Like, what's your takeaway so far from this team in the last month, I guess?
No, I mean, you're right, Justin. I think it's absolutely incredible how great the Jays have been since I'd say, around the middle of May. You could even go before that. They weren't playing terrible baseball. At that point before, I'd say April, they struggled, but they kind of were starting to find their steps in May. And then, it's been like the last 30 days or so where they've really started to take off. I think it's a combination of everything. I mean, you've got, they've had decent starting pitching for most of the season, especially when you consider who some of those starting pitchers have been. Their lineup is starting to come together in terms of more guys contributing. Every day you're seeing guys like Ernie Clement and Addison Barger, like guys that are not, typical household names for Blue Jays fans. They're contributing one. Exactly. And they're helping this team, continue to put up runs when they're needed. Give the starting pitching staff, which has been, depleted a little bit this season, gives them a little bit of breathing room sometimes, more than we've seen in the past. So it's great to see that the offense is starting to come alive in a big way. And they feel like they've got a different kind of energy around the team in general. And that when you're talking about a game like baseball where, there's no time limit on each game, you can pretty much come back from any deficit at any point.
Yeah.
It's important to have that kind of belief and to see the guys really enjoying the game and playing together. So I think it's been a fantastic couple of weeks, and I'm excited to see if they can continue to sustain this over the rest of the summer.
Listen, even if the Yankees do get one tonight, the Blue Jays definitely did their job this series, nabbing 3 out of the 4 at least. Huge swing in the AL East standings. And just looking at the overall team over the course of the year so far, they are average in a lot of things, except for the actual average of their batting average. They are third place in the MLB when it comes to batting average at .258. And I think that's a big reason why. We're seeing a lot more hits from this team last year in timely spots compared to last year. It's just something that with runners in scoring position last year, you basically had no hope that they were going to be able to hit a ball to save their life in those situations. This year, it seems to be a lot different. George Springer goes up to the plate with the bases loaded on Canada Day. Last year, you're probably thinking he's just going to ground out into a double play. This time around, he slams a grand slam, and I thought at least he was going to get a base hit. Like I had no worries or like issues with George Springer going up in that situation, and it's just because of what the team's been doing recently. It's been everyone, like you said, Brandon. It's not just the big guys; they're actually kind of slowed down compared to what you'd expect out of them. But it's the Ernie Clements of the world. It's the Alejandro Kirk stepping up of the world. It's obviously the Addison Bargers of the world, Nathan Lucas, Mike or Miles Straw, like all of these names, and you're still doing it without guys like Dalton Varsho. You still have Anthony Santander on the IL. Like, just imagine what that lineup can be when they actually come back and everyone starts rolling, because that's also a scary thing for other teams. They haven't really like look, especially for the big guys, they haven't looked like themselves and they haven't looked dominant, especially like Vlad and Bo. Like, they've looked good, don't get me wrong, but they haven't looked like the $500 million player in Vlad, and like we know he can get there. It's just a matter of getting in that groove, because that's all baseball really is getting hot at the right time. Um, but yeah, I wanted to single in on Addison Barger. Okay,
I would love
just
to do that. But
yeah, just
but I mean,
yeah.
first,
Go
what I
ahead.
what I was going to say is you made the great point about that the big guys can still, there's still potential for some of these guys to come back and the big guys can get going. Look, Bo Bichette hasn't played in this series against the Yankees, and it feels like he hasn't. Not that he hasn't been missed. I'm sure they would love to have him in the lineup, but like it feels like you never know who on this team, especially like coming from the bench or guys that have been up and down from AAA. You look at David
Yep.
Schneider, like you never know who's going to come up with a big hit, and that's a credit to again the whether it's the coaching staff or the leadership on this team. Like they don't seem to give up when things aren't looking great, whether that's in a particular game or if they have a little bit of a slump in season or if guys are going down with injury. It's easy to kind of fall apart mentally or as a group. So I think it's been refreshing to see that level of enthusiasm and excitement from the team and the fans as well. And yeah, I think you're 100% right. I'm excited to get into this. Is that a guy like Addison Barger, who didn't even start the year with the team, is is just making it look so easy at this point.
Yeah. So like with Addison Barger, 10 home runs. Yeah, like you said, didn't even start the year with the team at 209 at bats right now. He has 55 hits, 10 home runs, 30 RBIs, two stolen bases, and he's hitting 223 on our sorry 263 on average with an OBP of what was it here 325 and a slugging average of 493. These are pretty solid numbers, okay? Like for a guy that's coming up to the majors and trying to make an impact, especially when you know that you're gonna get more playing time with guys like Anthony Santander and Dalton Varsho out of the lineup. You got to take advantage of it, and that's exactly what Addison Barger has done. And yeah, it's just been impressive to watch. For the majority of this season, Addison Barger has just been the guy, it seems like, time and time again to just come up with timely hits. Like he had a grand slam. I forget the team it was a couple of weeks ago, but he had like timely, very timely grand slam. Maybe it was against the Athletics. I can't remember though. It was at home. Um, but yeah, it's just time and time again. It seems like he's making um great offensive strides at the plate, but then also the defense. I really like his defense. He has a cannon of an arm. Everyone knows that from third base. He has the tools, it seems, to play third base, and it seems he's only going to get stronger. Like this is only the beginning of Addison Barger. But yeah, like I wanted to just throw it to you. Like when you look at Addison, or I guess yeah, when you look at Addison, do you like see anything of like Josh Donaldson in him? Like I know it's a big comparison to make considering like he's just coming up to the majors, but do you see like a little bit, because like Josh Donaldson had the power that Barger has offensively, and then he was able to play the defense that Barger hopes to get to, and at least Barger has shown the flashes of. So is that too far of a comparison to make, or say like he at least has a little bit of like what Donaldson was in his prime in him right now?
Well, I mean, I'd say that the comparable in terms of obviously like the competitor that he is, the type of power. He's got a fantastic arm. We've seen that from third. We've seen that from, I think, right field where he's been playing a ton as well. You can certainly make that comparison that regardless of the specifics, because I would say that with Barger, being more of a left-handed hitter and having more of a kind of a bigger swing where Donaldson was obviously like a fantastic hitter for both contact and for power from the right side, and he had kind of that quick movement where he was able to get to ball so fast, and that's why
Yeah,
part of his success in his MVP year was just that ability to, like I said, hit for contact and for power. So I think in Barger you're seeing that kind of power from the left side that the Jays haven't had consistently, in a while. So I think you get a young player like that who's obviously excited to be here, has that hunger to win and to keep his spot on the roster. You want to see a guy like that just kind of give it his all. And the biggest thing for me is that he looks so much more comfortable at the plate than he had last year when he was up with the team. And it's just like a different level of confidence, I think, since he's kind of got on this role. And regardless of if it, sticks long term, I think it's at least going to give him a better chance to be more consistent at the plate, because that was kind of the one thing is if he can be a guy who hits more frequently for contact and is on base all the time, plus you add that power that he's got from the left side, like he can be a very dangerous hitter in a very solid lineup. So I think it's going to be incredible to watch, his development as he continues to figure out more about big league pitching and kind of getting even more comfortable than he is, obviously working with guys like Vlad and Bo, and you just continue to
yeah.
gain experience and gain, technique and try to figure out how he's going to attack big league pitching from now on. So I'm really excited to watch how he continues to grow and how the team continues to grow around him as well.
I want to like I don't want to do this often, and I haven't done this often, but I gotta give credit to Ross Atkins because like I think everyone in the city's been hard on him, and I agree. He definitely deserves to be had that pressure on him going into this year. But I will give him praise for like the simple message that he kept on relaying over and over again, which was we think we have guys within the system that can come up and step their way into the lineup and work their way up and really give us like a um I guess a internal solution to some of the problems that they were having the last couple of years. And yeah, people while they like maybe understood it, they didn't want to wait for it, right? So if they didn't want to wait for it, that like it almost felt like Ross Atkins was almost going to be pressured into trading away some of those guys. And thankfully, he didn't listen to the pressure and just stuck to his guns. Because yes, now we're at a point where those internal guys of Ernie Clement, Addison Barger, Will Wagner, sorry, just and Alan Roden, like they just keep on coming. And Jonte
Jonathan Classe,
Classe,
yeah.
yeah, uh, they step up, and we know they have Orelvis Martinez still in the minors. There's still a lot of good prospects down there, like so. I have to give him credit for like sticking to that kind of motto of just we're not gonna just go sell the farm because we think we need a bat right now, to get more I guess more hits, more runs in that moment, and instead wait to see these guys develop and actually contribute at the major league level because we know that there is something there. So yeah, I give him credit for that, man. Like it's impressive. It's impressive.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, like you said, I think he was pretty steadfast in continuing to believe even this year that they were going to see, more internal development when they didn't get off to the hottest start to start the year. They were pretty, they didn't seem too surprised. They thought they could be better and that they would eventually see that progress develop.
Yeah.
So I think I know I think people would love to justify or try to justify what he would say in the past as a reason just not to spend money or when things don't work out, you kind of use that as your crutch. But yeah, like give him credit. Hopefully if he truly saw the type of performances that we're seeing and the potential in a lot of these guys, then yeah, he's credits due where it's deserved, because he did hold on to a lot of these guys, and whether or not their value was high or not at specific times, it's sometimes easy to kind of let things go when you're not seeing what you want to see right away.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely been worth the
We
wait
see
for some of these guys. Yeah.
we see that in every sport, right? Like you just like you feel the pressure to win now, and then you might make a trade to trade away a prospect, which not it's not going to hurt you at the time, but eventually in time it's going to come back to bite you. Um, I just want to like switch off the Jays but stay MLB here for a couple minutes here. The Jays obviously are in the wild card spot. They're top leaders in the wild card right now. 3 games out of, or 3 games above Texas, who are 2.5 games back. Listen, I just I wonder, um, is there a team on the outside that surprises you here? We got Texas at 2.5 games back, the LA Angels at 2.5 games back, Boston at 3 games back, Cleveland at 4, Minnesota at 5, and Kansas City at 5.5. Do you see any one of those teams like getting into the hunt here as we head towards the All Star game and trade deadline?
I mean, I would argue all of those teams are gonna stay in the hunt. I think that for me, a team that you said maybe not surprised that they're not, in the playoffs yet or not in the playoffs at all. I'm surprised the Angels are kind of sticking around as much as they are.
Yeah,
They've had a really good job. They've played great against the Jays at times when the Jays have seen them this year. But it's also, I think, between the Red Sox, you mentioned the Royals, who I think going into this year people thought
yeah,
would probably be in the playoffs. Like there are some teams that can really still do some damage, in as we get into the second half of the season here. And you never know at the deadline, some of these teams will have to make decisions on whether they're going to be, buyers or sellers, or if they're going to go for it, or if they're going to kind of hang back and see what happens. So it should be a really exciting race. You mentioned all those teams within 5 or 6 games, like if
yeah.
if we continue to get to August and September and there's still a packed wild card race in the AL, it should be really fantastic because I don't think there's too much that really separates a lot of these teams.
Well, like that's what it is, right? Like, and the reason I ask you about that is simply because the race is so close with like what is it? One, two, three, four, five, 6 teams, right? That still are in that. Technically, all of them are in the hunt, but realistically, 6 teams. I'm maybe 7 if you want to include Baltimore, but I think that they're kind of done for the year. They're just gonna, play 500 baseball, maybe at best for the rest of the year. Probably not. But there's 6 teams here that are in the hunt, and that makes it a little bit. And it's still in the NL. I didn't even mention them, but like there's a bunch on that side as well that are in the hunt that are very close to the wild card. And the whole point of this is there aren't a lot of sellers, like clear sellers, other than like the Athletics, the White Sox, who you're probably not going to get a lot for right now because they don't really have a lot to offer. Obviously, you got a couple teams like the Marlins, the Rockies, but you're not going to get anything from the Rockies. So you got the Nationals, you got the Pirates, and maybe the Braves if they want to sell. And it leads me to the question like do you see the Blue Jays being aggressive at the trade deadline to, assure themselves that they're going to be a playoff team this season?
I mean, I see them being as aggressive as they usually are, which is maybe adding a relief guy, maybe taking a shot at a. I mean, this year especially would be great to take a shot at a starter who can help you, even
Starter,
if
yeah.
it's a low kind of a buy low candidate. I would love to see them, try to get just a not even like a number one, but just a bona fide starter that you could feel confident in being a number four or a number five. With kind of the kind of wait and see approach that we're going to be, working on with Max Scherzer for it seems like most of the year.
Yeah.
He's pitched a couple times in a row. He last start obviously came out, um, pitched pretty much what you would have expected him to pitch in terms of pitch count.
Hmm.
I think he pitched like 74 pitches, but didn't look great when he came out of the game. So it's not. It's kind of we're unsure about how long that can be sustained. And then you look at a guy like Eric Lauer. He's pitching fantastic in the spot that he's at. The kind of the third or fourth guy they've gone to in that position. So it's great to have that kind of stability there, but it would be great to have just another option there, even if it's going to be somebody who can move in and out of the bullpen, or maybe you have a guy like Lauer move in and out of the bullpen. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'd like to see them to do. Whether or not
Hmm.
they're going to be too aggressive, I find it hard to believe that they're going to take a big shot. But I'd like them to just try to make multiple moves to try to better their odds to make the playoffs again.
I don't think they really like. Sure, you can get a bat if you feel like you need one, but I don't think their need is in in like they need a bat. Like they still have guys that need to come back into the lineup, right? Like, and we're seeing
Yeah.
how well the offense is playing. So the offense isn't the issue for me, or like, and if you want to get a bat, I totally understand, but I don't think they're gonna go get a big bat. Basically, is what I'm saying. I do think like guys, and you gotta hope that like Arizona tails off here and like they just like give up and like Merrill Kelly comes available or Zach Gallen, because those two pitchers right there are two of the best pitchers if they come available. And yeah, the Blue Jays could definitely use one in their starting rotation, 100%. I know I saw Freddie Peralta. I don't think that's going to happen in terms of he's going to get moved to the Brewers.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
probably trust Gallon a little bit more. I do like Merrill Kelly too. I've heard nothing like serious. I think some rumors around Sandy Alcantara
yes,
out of
Sandy
Miami.
is,
I think
yeah.
he would be a fantastic option too. Like so yeah, like it'd be great to see them take a swing at one of those guys. Do I kind of expect it to happen? No, but I think they can kind of rest on saying, well, if we get to the playoffs, it's we usually go with 3 or 4 guys anyway. So like you can kind of see where they're headed. It looks like, I don't know who you would choose to be the Jays' #1 starter in a playoff series right now. Like, would you go? I think just
I would assume you're going Brios number one
he's
only
probably had the
because
best year, right?
yeah,
Yeah, but I
yeah.
still like for me I think Gosman still has like a level of there's a level of confidence that I feel when he's out there. I
You
would agree that he hasn't been as good
yes.
recently, but
Yeah.
there is
I
a
do agree with where you're going.
yeah.
Yes, I
But
do agree.
either way, like a guy like either of those guys that we just mentioned, like they could easily be a playoff game starter. So whether that's game 1, game 2, game 3, you just want to have enough guys to
Yeah.
get you through a potential series, right?
And hopefully Bowden Francis can figure it out. And yeah, we also still have oh my gosh, Alec Manoah to potentially come back this year.
Yeah, he's kind of the wild card
Um,
too.
yeah, so you just want to add like more stability, more arms. It's never a bad thing to have more better starting pitching in the rotation, and you can move a couple of those starters like back end of the rotation starters maybe to the bullpen and strengthen that up a lot more as well. But yeah, basically, outside of that, the MLB is in full swing as no other sports are going on right now. And talking about one sport that just basically wrapped up its season is the NHL. And that would be because there's no free agent. Oh, there's technically some free agents left, but there's no big free agents left. And there wasn't really any left on June 30th. And yeah, it was a terrible July 1st, okay? Terrible July 1st. Like in terms of free agents available, you just had nothing. And it's all thanks to the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers. So, first question I have is who's your biggest winner of free agency and who's the biggest loser that you have?
I mean, for me, I'd say and I can't even say the winner of like, are you asking me who's the biggest winner post
Oh,
July
I get
1?
like yeah,
Are you
yeah,
asking
like
me
no,
like
no, no, like who's the
all
biggest winner?
encompassing?
Yeah, like of
Yeah.
just like this signing season, I guess,
Yeah.
because we're gonna include all these free signings as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard not to say the Florida Panthers just because of the way that they, were able to kind of figure it out internally and get all of their high ticket potential free agents to re-sign and re-up at team friendly deals and gives them the opportunity to just continue the run that they're kind of working on. So I mean, for me, they've been the biggest winner. I think there's been a lot of teams that have gotten incrementally better. I'm sure we'll talk about it. Like Carolina signing Nikolaj Ehlers, I think that's a fantastic deal for them. I think they've done some other things that I think help them get better, but I don't know exactly where they're kind of going. But they've made big moves. Like there's a few other teams that have done just as well, but it's hard. There hasn't been as much available because we've seen so many teams, be able to keep most of their guys. Like Vancouver's another great example where I expected multiple players to hit free agency from them, and
Yep, yep.
they kind of almost kept them all. So I mean, it's like it's one of those things where this kind of year, whether it's just the money available, it's hard for players to kind of turn down similar money from a team or a situation where you might be comfortable. So
Takes a
that's
lot.
yeah, it would take
Takes
a
a lot
lot.
to
Yeah,
move.
yeah, and there just hasn't been that kind of you know surprising market swing. Really, like you haven't seen guys go out and command a ton of money. It just hasn't really happened. The NHL's continued to be a league that's still about kind of loyalty and situation and environment and where you're at. And for better or for worse, it's there's still talks about taxes and things like that make it more than just the number that you're signing for. So I think outside of I think the Toronto Maple Leafs maybe are
As
one of the bigger
winners,
one of the bigger losers.
oh, losers!
Unfortunately,
Wow. Okay.
I do love some of the incremental moves they did make, but when you lose a player like Mitch Marner, you've lost the best player available at this point. So
Oh, ooh.
that's kind of the way it goes. And they're not, I don't think they're in a position where they're going to fall flat on their face next season. They've got a lot of talent still, and I expect them to play very well and to still put themselves in a position to be in the playoffs and hopefully compete for a Stanley Cup, as we always say. So yeah, there was so much happening. It's hard to get to it all, but I'm sure we can break down a few things.
Yeah. Well, first, I just wanted to say, like, my winner is 100% Florida Panthers. I am in agreement with you there. And not only did they get they kept all the band together, and they just they're going to run it back for the next 5 years, and they have a core 10 instead of a core 4. They have a core 10 that's locked up for the next 5 years at least, which is crazy to think about. But not only that, outside of this Nick Ehlers deal that just happened, I don't know, 30 minutes ago here, like, can you tell me a team in the East that actually made a move to get better?
I mean, yes and no. I think you're right. Like
See,
there are teams like I think like the Boston Bruins
okay, but yeah,
were able to make moves and I think got better, but by how much I don't really know. Like you said with Carolina, I think they're better now than they were at the end of the playoffs, most likely.
is that enough to
But
it doesn't
yeah,
move the needle for me,
no,
unfortunately.
and
Nick
and
Ehlers
that's the
doesn't.
thing. It's like there's a big in the NHL. There's a big middle where you've got a handful of teams that you truly believe can compete for a Stanley Cup in any given year, and then there's a lot of teams that you feel pretty confident that they'll be in the playoffs and they're a good team, but it would almost be surprising if they were to win, more than 2 or 3 rounds. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where even in the West, I think that's part of why we saw so many teams kind of push to re-sign players, because again it's kind of the devil versus the devil you don't. You'd rather kind of know that have talent and that you've kept held on to that and you're still giving yourself a chance compared to
Yeah.
trying to go out there and do something different and potentially have yourself fall back and now you're in a rebuild because you weren't able to kind of stick to the status quo. So there's a lot of value in the NHL and being in the playoffs, and you can obviously as an owner you always strive to do that, but you also want to put yourself in the best position to win the Stanley Cup. And for better or for worse, we haven't seen any of these crazy trades or anything that people have suggested teams might try to kind of get around
Yeah.
the difficulty of signing free agents this summer. So we'll see if things heat up in that area now that I'd say the majority of players
Jack Roslovic
are
is your
signed.
best free agent right now.
Yeah, so I think you're going
So
to see teams start to say, "Well, what have we got here?
yeah,
Can we improve in other ways?" and decide to make moves
offer
with
sheets
other
available
teams.
still.
Yeah, and there are a few teams
Marco
specifically.
Rossi, Bowen Byram, Mason McTavish, all those guys still available to
Yeah.
be offer sheeted. So we might see that market heat up over the next week or so. But yeah, I think the only team, I just thought about it right now, the only team that I would say, and I'm not trying to be biased, is the Montreal Canadiens, and I don't think they made enough. They've made great moves, don't get me wrong, and I think that they've gotten better this offseason. That Zachary Bolduc trade for Logan Mailloux is a great move by Ken Hughes. Adding Noah Dobson, it's all positive for the team with probably the deepest asset pockets in the NHL. But even for them, I think it puts them into a championship window, or at least to try and compete for the championship, have a real chance. The playoffs is now the bare minimum for them going forward. But I still don't think that they're at a spot where you're going to challenge Florida, if that makes sense. I think now they're in the Carolina range or maybe the Toronto range, where They're probably going to be competitive in the playoffs, are going to get to the playoffs, and they're going to be a team that could potentially win 1 or 2 rounds, and then you're probably going to lose to the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference Finals if you get there. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with the Montreal Canadiens, and that's where I'm at with everyone else in the East. I just don't think that anyone else made any moves to really, like, other than Nick Ehlers, like I said, that really, like, say, oh my gosh, you know, this team's going to come out and they're going to be able to challenge Florida like a different way that no one else has yet. Yes, New York added Vladislav Gavrikov, which I thought was a great signing, but like we know that they've lost Chris Kreider. They've moved off a bunch of pieces. It was a dumpster fire last year. They had to get a new head coach. Like everything has changed in New York. I don't just see them just flipping it all back to being, President's Trophy winners, like they were 2 seasons ago now. But yeah, so we'll get into a couple here. Other than
You want to
let's
start
just
with
go.
with Marner?
Yeah, I just want. Let's just start with Marner. We've buried the lead on him long enough. He dominated the headlines for about a year. Saying whether or not he'd sign or not, whether or not he'd be traded. Well, he signed with Toronto and then got traded to Vegas in a sign-in trade for 8 years, $12 million a season, and he is now a Vegas Golden Knight. Him and Jack Eichel from the 2015 draft class and Noah Hannafin, all three were drafted to teams, and now they're playing together on a team that never existed before they even were drafted. It's pretty crazy to think about. If you went back and told them like 10 years ago, hey, boys, you guys are going to play together and you're going to play on a team that doesn't exist right now in the NHL, no one would believe that, right? So it's pretty cool to think about. But anyway, wanted to get into it. 8x12. What is the initial reaction to Marner signing in Vegas?
Well, I think the reaction was pretty dull, at least on my end, just because it had been such a like we had been waiting for it. It seemed not only through the last the week before free agency with all of the rumors and the reports that there was the deal in place and that things were pretty much almost a guarantee. So once that hit, that Frege bomb that it's done. It wasn't really. I wasn't shocked. I was maybe just because it was the typical Friday, or it was just the typical Monday afternoon, 5 o'clock news dump. You kind of expected maybe that middle of the day, but it took a little bit longer, and that was the only question, was whether or not they were going to get it done and whether or not he was going to get to free agency and truly go the distance. So it was a sad. Yeah, I think it was a sort of a sad day in Toronto, but it was also like a day of like not necessarily relief, but like kind of excitement towards what the future could hold. And I think it gives it's one way or another we're gonna know truly what happened and why, what this team looks like without Mitch Marner and what Mitch Marner looks like without this Maple Leafs team. And I'm excited to kind of see that happen. I think it's kind of sad that we couldn't get more of an understanding. I think a lot of people knew it was coming throughout this year, throughout maybe even years prior, but it was just kind of one of those things where you almost didn't believe it until it actually happened. And yeah, it was just one of those things where that it's probably for the best, unfortunately, but I know there's a ton of people that would have loved to see him stick around and try to continue his journey and the Leafs journey to try to win a Stanley Cup together. So, yeah, I'm excited to see, what the team can make of itself going into next season and what things really look like. And yeah, it's Austin Matthews time now, if you ask me.
So I would say the weeks after, the way I can put this is like the initial reaction after Game 7, everyone hates Marner, everyone wants him gone, everyone's like, see you later, kid. But as we removed ourselves from that week by week, that Game 7 loss on Sunday night to the Florida Panthers, it started to grow of a sense of, how are you actually going to replace Marner when he's gone? Like, what's the plan when he's gone? Like, And right now, you're sitting at the roster and you're looking at it, and it doesn't look like they've replaced Marner in any way. Like, yeah, you get Nikolaj in that deal, good solid player, but obviously he's not going to replace Marner. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I just I think as the time went on and the closer we got to, I guess June 30th is when this whole thing happened. I think I think it was around like 40% of fans like we're now back in the let's run it back. Let's try and get him back signed because we want to see what we can do. We're the only team that took Florida to game 7. Like, we took Florida the farthest that any team did in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That should mean something. But at the end of the day, I think this shows that even though every Toronto fan thought it was for just money, I don't think it was just for the money. I think it was for the fit. And at the end of the day, he didn't seem like he was happy with the fit anymore in Toronto, whether it be the fact that they came up short every single year that he was there, whether it be the fact of the media pressure that he faced, while other players definitely deserved the same criticism, he was the one that got it most of the time. Like, it just seems, and you can see the excitement on his face when he puts on that Vegas Golden Knights jersey for the first time. He's excited for a fresh chapter in his career. He's excited to get out of Toronto, and that might hurt Toronto fans because he's a Toronto-born kid. But listen, I I don't like. I'm not gonna say you fully pushed him out of here, but there was definitely some embrace of you doing what you guys did over the past 9, 10 seasons since he's been drafted, saying that he's not big enough, he's not good enough, he can't do this, he can't do that, puts up 100 points a season, can't play in the playoffs, puts up a point per game this year in the playoffs. It simply wasn't enough. And he looks like a guy that is just excited to get a fresh start with the Vegas Golden Knights. That's my take on Marner right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like what you said about whether or not the criticism of him is fair. I think I think there's two elements to it. Just because, yes, he is I think a hometown, like obviously is a hometown guy from Toronto, and I think there's a higher pressure obviously for those type of guys, and I'm sure there's a bigger, it hits a lot closer to home when things go sour, and especially when you hear about some of the incidents that could have, or that
Should have
put
been avoided.
yeah, like when people are kind of making it personal, and are going out of their way obviously to make
Oh, I
somebody
thought you
feel
were
bad.
going different. I thought you were going down the Babcock road
No,
of Mitch
but I would
like
say
that
that
even.
stuff like that, like his whole tenure, there have been moments along the way that have been, yeah, unseemly, or something that you just wouldn't want to happen. And I think that Babcock example is a good one. That the organization, yeah, they eventually fired him. That's great, but like that stuff kind of shouldn't have happened. There should have been more oversight over that, and I think he understands that yeah, like no matter what happened in Toronto, like there was always going to be that kind of, it feels like for him a negative kind of connotation with playing here, unless they were to truly only when they would win the Stanley Cup. And for him, it seems like he just wasn't willing to take that kind of risk, and to go to Vegas where he'll be relatively not necessarily unknown, but he can
Go under the radar a
yeah,
little bit.
100%, and he doesn't have to deal with the same level of criticism and kind of vitriol that he at some points got here, whether it's not necessarily fair from the fans. Sometimes there were more incidents than needed to be, obviously, but yeah, it's just one of those sad things that happens. But you got to move on, and that's why I applaud the Leafs for their patience, even though it you know people have been ripping them as well for not getting more or doing anything else. But the worst thing you could do hypothetically is a spend all the money on Marner, give him $14 million a year, and then you're 5 6 years again later you still don't have a Stanley Cup, and you've just alienated your fan base, or created a version of your team that just is laughable
Yep.
after so many years. And B is they didn't go out and try to be unruly and spend their money in free agency like crazy. So they've been pretty steadfast in just trying to acquire some smaller pieces and trying to not give too much money or not give away too much capital in some of these minor deals. So I mean, I think it's for the best because we don't yet necessarily know where the league is headed in terms of, yes, there will be more money available, but is this going to be the trend now in today's NHL where homegrown players are more likely to stay with their teams and go beyond their entry level contracts or go beyond their second contracts, and sign big money deals at home, as opposed to typically you'd go to free agency just to hit the market and see what your value was, as opposed to re-signing prior to July 1st. So I think it's one of those things where the Leafs may have to make decisions going forward about what they're going to do with their newly found kind of cap space. But for the moment, I think they're smart in kind of allowing their kind of roster to speak for itself. And to that, I'd say that's also part of it is you want to see what the guys that where the chemistry may have been off or where there may be a different level of expectation. You kind of want to see how they respond to that. And I think you still got a ton of talent and you still have a lot of youth and players in their prime that can come together and make a run at this. You might have one of the better goaltending tandems in the league. You still have a very strong defense. You have, a 1A or 1B in terms of goal scorers in the league. So in Austin Matthews and when you have guys like John Tavares and William Nylander and Matthew Nyes now, and go kind of see what this squad can do, and you keep trying to build to Craig Berube's vision and see if you can kind of continue to bring this team along. We saw a different level of competitiveness and energy in the playoffs from this team than when they were then with Sheldon Keefe. So I think it's worth just continuing the path and trying to see what you can squeeze out of these guys.
I would agree. I just want to touch on the situation at hand with Marner and the fact of where he signed. Let's be real. Don't kid yourself. He wasn't going to the Chicago Blackhawks. At the end of the day, now maybe if they offered him $16 million a year, then maybe sure we can talk about it. Maybe if San Jose decided to offer him $16 or $17 million a year, fine, whatever. But I could only see him going to realistically two teams in my eyes, and not even LA was on my list. I thought a team that was ready to compete, and if they got Marner, not only would they take the next step, but they would be fully in the conversation of competing for the next 8 years, and that would be the Anaheim Ducks. I think if they would have got Marner, that would have been a terrific get for Pat Verbeek and now Joel Quenneville, who's the new head coach, because that team looks like they are ready to take the next step. I thought a guy like Marner, even though, and I do think you have a good point, I know we talked about it off camera, if he went to Anaheim, he would have to be that guy. You just don't know if he is that guy in terms of he would be the number one focus person every single night on that team. And while he is a superstar and is one of the best 20 players, if not 15 players in the world, you don't know because he's always played with Austin Matthews, right? And William
Yeah,
Nylander.
like who's going to be a centerman in Anaheim? Like Leo
I would say
Carlson, or
Leo
like
Carlson, and I
not
would have
exactly the
confidence.
same. Yeah, he'd be a great player, and they'd probably have a good season together, but it's not going to be to the level that you'd probably see from
Yes.
Austin Matthews. Yeah.
But now he goes and he's going to play alongside Jack Eichel or Thomas Hertl, whichever one of those two he finds better chemistry with. Which my imagination it would probably be Jack Eichel. And it's a lethal line. Like Vegas is a perfect fit for Marner in my opinion. As a Leafs fan or Leafs fans hate to hear this, but like he probably fits better in that team than what he ever has with Toronto. Like it's just simple. Like it's not that if you don't overthink it, it honestly is he fits so good with this team and I expect 100-point season out of him and Eichel next year. Like that's how good of a combination I feel like those two are going to be. He might even help Eichel elevate, who was looking like to be a Hart candidate this year, not win the Hart, but look like to be in that conversation. He might even help elevate him to get a Hart. Yeah, it's that good. Like
I mean,
it's I'm excited for it.
imagine Mitch Marner goes and wins a Hart in
Yeah,
Vegas for running point with Jack Eichel, and he has 70, 80 assists or something with 110 points on a down year for the league. Like it's certainly possible. I think that the point about Anaheim is a good one. I think they were in the running potentially if they were making offers. I mean, I assume
yeah,
they were. Um, but yeah, I would agree. It's hard for me to envision, not that Anaheim doesn't have potential to get back into the playoffs. They obviously they made strides this year. I think
I
everyone
think
felt they did.
they, yeah,
But I think without having seen that yet, if Mitch Marner had been a free agent next year, or the year after that, and Anaheim had been back in the playoffs, I think that gives them more of a shot because you can kind of envision what it looks like. But I
yeah, I
don't think
guess.
he was going from how hypothetically a Stanley Cup contender the last 3 or 4 years in the Maple Leafs to a team that hadn't been in the playoffs for some time. That's why I ruled out Chicago. I personally, we talked about this. Like I kind of ruled out Anaheim. I had a hunch, maybe LA, just because again the environment's so
Yeah,
good. They
yeah.
have been there, kind of like they've obviously made the playoffs, haven't gone deep or anything like that. But there have been pieces that show that they have
I,
potential.
I do have a question for you with LA, and this is
Yeah,
why I thought no chance for LA.
sure. Yeah, what's up?
You talked about Anaheim center, number one
Well,
center,
that
and I think
yeah,
Leo
yeah.
Carlson's better than whatever answer you're gonna give me for LA because they don't have a number
No,
one center to
no.
stick with Marner.
1,000%. I think he'd be talking about like him playing with like a Quentin Byfield or something, or like you don't really know what
Like, and I'm
that.
not discrediting, sorry, because I know
No,
if
and I
people are
agree.
listening,
Like he's a great.
Kopitar is still a really good
Yes.
player, but like he's reaching the point where he's probably going to be a couple of years left in the league here. So I'm just talking about the longevity of this. Like he wanted to see a future with a center on a teammate. That's all I meant. Sorry, go back to your point.
No, and I mean, I don't think many people would argue that Anze Kopitar, while still a fantastic player and can give you a ton on your hockey team, no one I don't think would expect Mitch Marner to go there, thinking he's going to play 22 minutes a night with Anze Kopitar on his as a centerman because Kopitar just isn't that player anymore, and
Yeah,
that's not, again obviously not a shot at
not
him,
yeah.
but they've been able to move through that era where he's been their number one guy, and now are working on other players that have been giving them just as much. And I think
Yeah,
it would be a great environment. Sure, maybe not as big of a good of a fit because of the star talent that's in Vegas as well. But yeah, it's something that I could have seen. But for me, Vegas was the spot the whole time. I think you look at what they had and what was rumored to potentially come back to the Leafs before even the deal was announced. Like you could kind of envision what Vegas could do to make room
mm-hmm.
for Mitch, and they were able to do it. I think in more creative way than anyone thought. Nobody really expected a guy like Alex Pietrangelo to kind of be off the books now. People thought they were going to be trading a guy like Thomas Hurdle. Like, no, they were able to just kind of keep moving along, and it didn't really take them
Yeah.
that much. They've had it figured out. It seems like from day one.
Yeah, and at the same time that news broke, about 20 other things break at the exact same time. I don't know every team. I do think that I will have a conspiracy theory here for you. I don't have them often, but I do think the Marchand deal was done for like an hour or two at least after the Ekblad deal got done. And they got word probably that this is a conspiracy theory. This is probably never happened, but I'm just gonna say it happened because it just coincidence timing, I guess, that the exact same moment that the Toronto Maple Leafs announced that Mitch Marner is being traded for 8 and then signing an 8-year extension for $12 million a season, the number one Leafs target gets announced about 5 minutes later, maybe not even like 2 minutes afterwards, that he's signing a 6-year extension with the Florida Panthers. Like that to me was just that was just the salt in the wound for the Leafs fans. Like not only you knew Marner was coming, you knew that was coming, and then you see the number, and you're probably like, "Are you kidding me? Like $12 million? Like that's all you really settled for? Like obviously it wasn't just about money for you." And then just like, okay, we'll turn our attention to Brad Marchand. That's okay. We're gonna do this. And then 2 minutes later, Marshy's staying for 6 years in Florida. What disgusting work by Bill Zito. Holy moly, what a GM. He said he wanted to keep all three. He did it. Obviously, Marshy has to stay until, or going to be paid until 43. Probably won't even play that contract out. But listen, you're in the business of winning cups. This is a move to win some more Stanley Cups. I'll tell you that much right now. We won't get into it that much because we already talked about the Florida Panthers being winners already. We both think that what they did and what Bill Zito accomplished is just incredible work. Jeff Petrie they bring in. I think that's their new Nate Schmidt. It's their new Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They just get a veteran guy who wants to go and rejuvenate his career, and Jeff Petrie's the man that steps up this year. We'll move on though to just want to touch on Nick Ehlers. Obviously, just signed 6 years, $8.5 million AAV in Carolina. I think it's a $50 million deal or $51 million deal if I am correct. If my math is mathing. But yeah, Nikolaj Ehlers, what does he bring to the Carolina Hurricanes?
Well, he brings a pretty dynamic, goal scoring ability. That's for sure. I mean, we know that it was no secret that the Hurricanes were after a pretty dynamic, winger to play alongside a guy like Sebastian Aho. I think you had Rantanen. They had him in their hands, and it did obviously just didn't work out. There were rumors they were interested in Marner. I think they had significant interest in a lot of different players, and I'm sure had they not been able to sign Ehlers, they might have gotten creative again. We know Eric Tulsky there. Is happy to make moves and wants to do whatever it takes to make his team better. So yeah, I would say Ehlers gives them definitely a goal scorer's punch. He's clearly going to play on their top line. I think he's going to be a pretty dynamic player, and he should fit in their system. He's got a lot of speed. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he plays with a little bit of an edge, and he can obviously put the puck in the net. So I think you're going to see like most guys that go to Carolina, it typically works out. It's very rare. Obviously, we saw it with Rantanen where it doesn't look like a fit, but that may not have even been more on the ice. He didn't get off to much of a hot start, but there were obviously other issues in terms of what was happening with the contract and where and the prospect that he may be traded again. So I think with Ehlers signed there long term, and I think we're going to see a pretty good fit there, and that team should again. They're one of those teams that just keep chugging along. They make, what most people wouldn't consider maybe significant moves, other years, maybe in the last, 6 months, they have obviously made some pretty significant moves, but they just quietly continue to always acquire players that can help them continue to get to the playoffs and give them a chance every year to get to a conference final, to get to a Stanley Cup potentially. So they're in a good spot, especially in a metro that's kind of, maybe flipping on its head a little bit with some of the changes in New York and even on Long Island. We see the Devils are kind of no one really knows what they're going to look like this year. We expect them to be back, as a more competitive team. But yeah, there are a lot of question marks in that division. So I think they are clearly still, along with the Caps, maybe the cream of the crop there. So I think they're just going to continue to be as good, if not better than what we saw last year. Oh, I think you're muted there, Justin.
Sorry, my bad. Last thing on the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets perspective. They obviously now lose Ehlers. They don't retain him, but I like it leaves a massive hole on that wing for them. Obviously, it's not going to be fillable. Unless you do it via trade. You got to hope that one of these guys in Brad Lambert, Colby Bartlow, or Braden Yeager can even come up next year and fill somewhat of a void there, because you signed Jonathan Toews and everything looks up for the President's Trophy winners from this past year, but now it feels like they might take a step back.
Yeah, I think that's certainly possible. I mean, yeah, you mentioned that there was never really a player out there to replace a guy like Ehlers, and it's going to be difficult.
There was one. Sorry, there was. He resigned the Brock Besser.
Oh, yeah, that's fair, and I think you're right.
Guy,
he is that would have been a great but I don't know that he was necessarily going to go there. But I agree, they could have pushed hard for somebody like him if he had gone to free agency too. So I think, or if he had gone somewhere else. But I think that yeah, it's going to be really tough for them. They, Shovel Day Off and those guys in Winnipeg, they are typically pretty creative as well. They do like to, they're not afraid to make moves if they think it'll make their team better, knowing that they can't always get big names to come to Winnipeg via free agency. So it will be interesting to see. I mean, I, I think you're right. Like a step back is probably in the cards for the Jets, but for a team who was near at the top of the league this year, a step back may still be, a third place in the Central
Yeah,
or maybe a wild card, right? Like
yeah,
that's not the worst thing in the world sometimes, especially with all the expectation of of potential, for more moves next season. So I think if you can, similar to the Leafs, if you can kind of hang around in the playoffs and still put out a really good product and free up some space in the future, like you might be in a better position than a team that goes all in this year and maybe fizzles out in the playoffs or maybe doesn't even make the playoffs, right? With what we saw last year from Nashville, we knew that there weren't going to be too many teams taking huge swings this year, and that's probably part of why again you continue to see this culture of re-signing your own kind of talent so that you can kind of continue to run with it the way that you see as a vision. So I think until we really see again, the league loves to it's a copycat league just like any other. So if
yeah.
next year there's a ton of free agents available and teams start plucking them out from different spots, then you might see more movement next year compared to what we've kind of seen this season.
Yeah, you feel bad for Winnipeg fans, and especially Shovel Day Off. Like he's one of the best GMs in the league and one of the most underappreciated GMs in the league. Just imagine if he was in a spot that wasn't Winnipeg, where players wanted to come to him. Like he is one of the most creative GMs in the league, and for good reason because that's the only way you can like make things work and make things great in Winnipeg, and he's done a terrific job of it. But I just imagine him like if he was in Dallas, if he was in Jim Nill's spot, if he was like Stevie Y right now, like people would want to go to Detroit. Like you know what I mean? Like I feel bad for Shell Day Off
You
sometimes.
you,
Just
you think people want to go to Detroit right now?
I think people want to go to Detroit.
Yeah, maybe.
I think people want to go to Detroit if they can create a vision.
Well, that's the
Like
thing is I
if they
don't.
show them
They
the
haven't.
vision.
To me, they haven't done anything too
They did
significant.
add John Gibson. I do
I
like
do
that.
like that move, but I don't know that again. Like they're kind of in that murky middle. But for me, they're kind of on the bottom side of it, as opposed to
Yeah,
like a Montreal who's moving their way up with pretty creative moves and trying to get
but I
better at all
will.
aspects.
Yeah, but that's only because they had, like I said, the deepest assets pockets in the NHL. I do think Stevie Y has a good point here. Like they asked him like, why didn't you go after any top free agents? And he's like, well, all the top free agents were already re-signed or traded by the time that free agency already opened, so we didn't even get a chance to talk to any of them. Like it just was a different year in that aspect. And unless you were going to say Detroit's going to acquire Mitch Marner via trade, you're not getting Sam Bennett, Provorov. Uh, I thought Provorov might go to Detroit if he hit the market, but you're not giving Gavrikov. He was pretty set on New York the whole time. It seemed like. But yeah, it was just it was a down year for free agents, and I don't think you can really blame Stevie Y this time around for not getting anyone because like realistically, do you just want him to waste the money and do stupid contracts? I'd much rather him just hold on to it and make smart moves.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think like I don't necessarily mean Iserman himself is doing a poor job. I just think there was a level of intrigue and kind of allure to the Detroit and the Red Wings, maybe
Yeah,
more so 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever you want to say, compared to now. It's not that they're a losing franchise or that they're, completely out of it. They still are pretty competitive and have a ton of young talent that can help them get back to some kind of prosperity. But it just feels like, yeah, you're right. There was a lot of hope. It feels like for some of these more middling teams, another team like Columbus, where I think they were ready to make some moves and spend some money,
hmm
but it just really wasn't. It's not there, right? So, yeah, there's some teams that are kind of stuck in perpetuity right now and are really hoping for internal growth and some of these young players to come up from whether it's the minors or step in from a lower role and hopefully help these teams get a little bit better. But you never know how that works out.
All right. Last thing, and then I have a little game for you. Okay,
Cool.
just to end off. Um, Okay, last thing is the NBA and Giannis and this Dame situation, because that's kind of interesting to me. Obviously, landing Miles Turner, massive signing. Thought he was staying in Indiana, to be completely honest with you. Shocks everyone by going to Milwaukee. Giannis is obviously pumped. And then the Dame news hits that they're waiving him. Are you shocked that they waived him? And do you think Giannis is actually pissed about this?
I mean, I was certainly shocked. I've been a guy who really I love Damian Lillard. I think he's a fantastic player. Obviously, like 9-time All Star. He's been an All NBA player for a long time. I think he's a top 7. I think he was in that top 75 group when they did that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
like he's a guy that to me could have helped them, get back to the finals and find their way back. But obviously injuries just didn't work out. I was shocked. Yeah, I mean the money alone. I'm sure Dame is happy because he can go play, get a contract somewhere else, and he's going to continue to get paid by the Bucks. But to me, yeah, the Bucks are kind of always operate with a little bit of desperation, especially now with all the rumors around what Giannis wants to do and where things are headed. So I'm not too surprised. I'm not sure how much of a basketball fit though it's going to be. I think Miles Turner is a fantastic player and definitely gives them something um, that they like to have. You see a guy like Brook Lopez who's been there and is kind of a 3-and-D guy. Turner can be the same kind of thing at that center position,
Mm-hmm.
but like who's going to be their point guard? Who's going to be
Yeah,
helping them
that's the
from the
thing,
outside?
right?
Like you need
What's
guys.
Giannis just gonna man the point?
I mean, he's certainly capable of being a
That
guy
was a
who
joke.
handles the ball, but you're not. But it's true. Like he's not. He can't be a full-time point guard. He needs help and he
Yeah.
needs guys to distribute the ball in a different way. So whether or not they're not done and they're maybe gonna be looking to bring in other players via trade or they're expecting again like a younger player. I think the last year that was the one thing that kind of disappointed me is that the Bucks didn't really have um, a good group of guys. It felt like around Giannis. It felt like they were missing a lot of kind of role players that they've maybe had in the past. So to kind of rest all your laurels on now Giannis and another big, it doesn't feel like that's really going to be too successful in today's NBA. But maybe there's more to come.
All right. To round out this show, as a Leafs fan, not me. I'll make that very clear. As you, as a Leafs fan, we're gonna play a game to end off Mitch Marner's legacy in Toronto. Are you ready? Are you excited, or are you scared?
No, I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm curious. Let's see what happens.
All right. So obviously, Mitch Marner is here. I'm gonna name a player. I'm gonna keep on naming players until you name me a better player than Mitch Marner, or who you'd rather take than Mitch Marner. Okay?
Okay, but I like to preface things. So is this like going into next season? Is this like has a
This
better
is
is it a
right
better
now.
career? Or
This
just
is
is a
right.
just
This
a
is
better
just right
player? Just
now.
who I think is a better
Better
player.
player. Who's the better player?
All right, all right.
All right. Starting off, Travis Konechny,
No,
John Tavares,
no,
Andre Kempe.
no. I wouldn't take Kempe. No, over Marner.
Yeah. Matt Boldy.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Jack Hughes. Yeah, Jack Hughes. Yeah,
We're
we'll go
getting
with
that
Jack
now. We're
Hughes.
getting there, but still no.
You're not taking Jack Hughes over Mitch Marner.
Not right now. No,
Wow. Okay. Uh, Lucas Raymond,
no,
Jason Robertson,
no, no. I don't think so.
Martin Necas,
No.
William Nylander, former teammate.
Wow, good one.
This is going to say a lot if you choose here.
This one's tough. They're very different. Who's the better? I mean, Mitch plays in more situations. He offers you a little bit more. I mean, I still would probably take Mitch. His market
Okay, so
value is higher.
Mitch,
Yeah.
you're going with Mitch. You just
I love
just
Nylander.
go with it. Jesper Bratt,
No, it's still Mitch.
Clayton Keller,
No,
Brandon Hagel,
no.
Kyle Connor.
I mean, better goal scorer probably, but not a better player.
So Mitch,
Yeah.
Artemi Panarin,
Ooh, I like that one. People love Panarin. I think he's fantastic, but I still probably would take Marner.
okay, Mikko Rantanen,
Oh man. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but
Rantanen, you want to know their last year's numbers?
No, I mean thinking about like, I mean I take
What
Rantanen's
numbers do you want to know?
he's got the cup and he's same money. I mean all things considered, if you're gonna tell me it depends maybe what kind of team I have, but I would say Rantanen and Marner are about the same, and maybe Rantanen's a bit better.
Okay, so you're still
I'm
not
not
like
100% sold on that one
okay.
still. Yeah.
All right,
I'm sure you
Sam
got a few more.
Reinhart.
No, I
You're
know.
taking Mitch Marner
I'll
over
take
Sam
I'll
Reinhart?
take Mitch Marner over Reinhardt. Yeah. Again, this is kind of depending on what my team looks like, but if I could have my choice,
A lot of these guys are top 20, 30 players in the league, and you've said Mitch Marner is better than every one of these players, except for he's equal with Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah,
David Pastrnak.
I think I would.
This one has to be it.
I think I would take Pastrnak in that.
Yeah,
if I had the choice. I think he gives you a different. He's the best. He's the best player, I think, of all the guys you just named.
All right. So the point of that game was to just prove to every Leafs fan, not just you, what you're really, truly losing in a player like Mitch Marner. That was the point of that. Sorry, Brandon, to put you through it, but
it's very fair. I think like it's going to be tough to see what things look like when you're talking about taking out a player who is, there's no doubt about it, is one of the better players in the league as a whole. So I think it's a good way to kind of visualize it for sure. But you named a lot of players. There's still a lot of players that are unequivocally better than Mitch Marner. There's more than a few, I'd say.
Yeah, there's 10 maybe, 10, 12.
That's fair. Yeah.
Players better than Mitch Marner in the NHL.
Yeah. And one of them was on his former team. So
what?
Well, one of them is on his former team.
Yeah, one of them is. Yeah. But
so I mean that's why that's to illustrate that I think the Leafs will be okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so that just about does it for episode 29 of the Second Looks podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed. Again, my name is Justin Arenburg. That's Brandon Brown. We hope you liked it. We hope you subscribe. We hope you follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and I hope you follow us on social media on Twitter /X, Instagram, and TikTok, because if you want to just see random clips, go follow those accounts. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Oh, programming note. Since we're in the summer, this is just going to be solely now probably summer sports, talking about more so baseball over the next couple of weeks. And then as we get into August, probably some more football. And then we get back into NHL and NBA. But super excited for football season. Let's go.
Can't wait.
Let's go.